Welcome again with the Unit 3 Module 2. In the last module, we have discussed the introductory part of environmental pollution with air pollution and acid rain. In this particular second module, we are going to discuss what is water pollution, what are the pollutants or water pollutants, what is eutrophication. We are also going to discuss 3 case studies: minamata disease, itai-itai, blue baby syndrome, and in the last we are going to discuss the wastewater treatment. So, water pollution. First of all, we need to understand what are the sources of water. The sources of water are groundwater, surface water. Okay, so we can categorize such sources. Now, in the groundwater as well, first we are taking what? The groundwater. So, there are 2 levels under the groundwater, that is the unconfined aquifers and confined aquifers. I discussed such portion in land resources as well, the water resources as well, in the earlier units. The unconfined aquifers, which are having the permeable rock sediments, and the confined aquifers are those which are having less permeable rock sediments about it. So, the unconfined aquifers are more contaminated as compared to the confined aquifers, because the unconfined aquifers are in direct contact with the pollutants which are releasing from different sources. So, we can also categorize this water pollution with the point or direct sources or active or passive sources. That means when there is the industrial plants, the sewage pipes are directly interacting with the water bodies, then this is the direct source of water pollutants. The indirect sources, for an example, the automobile, through automobile there is a generation of air pollutants. These air pollutants interact with the water, as we discussed in the last module, the acid rain part, and then this particular acid again come to the water bodies. So, this is what the indirect source. So, and the another part is the fertilizers, the pesticides, the insecticides on farmland areas, they used to interact with the water bodies via rainfall. So, these are indirect sources. Now, water pollution forms, that means when there is a water pollution, there is the disease outbreak is also associated with that. 80% of the diseases are waterborne diseases. There is an interaction of synthetic organic compounds with the water bodies. There is a contamination of inorganic compounds, the mineral substance, the heavy metal content, acids with the water bodies. The radioactive substances may also contaminate the water bodies. The pollutants or the waste which is continuously mixing with the water bodies, these are all oxygen demanding waste. And the sediments also facing the same issues with the pollutants. And but obviously, if there is a waste or the contaminants are available in the water bodies, there is a thermal discharges as well. The heat generation will be there. It will again disturb the water ecosystem. Now, what are the effects of water pollution? Number 1, degradation of oxygen dissolved. As we all know that water is having the dissolved oxygen. So, that dissolved oxygen will get decreased if there is the pollutant is available. The dissolved oxygen varies from 8 to 15 milligram per liter. For active fish species, that means 5 to 8 milligram per liter of dissolved oxygen is required, whereas less desirable species require only 3 milligram per liter of dissolved oxygen. But if pollutants are there, this particular amount of dissolved oxygen get decreased. And there is a term eutrophication. Eutrophication, that means the increase in nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium content in water bodies, for an example lakes. Then there is an increase in the growth of the algae or algal bloom, you can say. The another effect is biomagnification of pollutants. As we have discussed the DDT case study in the earlier modules, the biomagnification means the transfer of pollutant from one trophic level to another trophic levels. So that is known as biomagnification of pollutants. There is a, if waste is there, if there is a contaminant or pollutant is there with the water body, there is an increase in the biological oxygen demand and chemical oxygen demand. Now emphasizing on eutrophication, as you can see in this particular diagram, there are variety of sources of contaminants to the water body. These contaminants are having nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium. So these NPK are responsible for the enormous growth of algae of the lake, and the gradual increase in the concentration of NPK in an aging aquatic ecosystem, there is an increase in algal growth in lakes. Algal bloom suffocates the lake ecosystem, which leads to death of lake species, the flora and fauna, the phytoplanktons, the zooplanktons, the fishes get suffocated because there is a covering or coating of algae over the lake. So this is very important topic, eutrophication. And in this context, you can say the eutrophic lakes we have discussed in ecosystem part, the types of lakes we have discussed. So the nutrient rich lakes are get eutrophicated, and this is what the sometime there is a bubbling of methane also you can see in particular lakes due to the pollutants, the water pollutants. Now groundwater pollution, as you can see in this particular diagram, these unconfined and confined aquifers are get affected by the pollutants from a variety of anthropogenic sources. Ocean also get affected. People used to dispose of their waste in seas and oceans. They also affect the marine life. As in this particular diagram, you can see the industries, the cities, the construction sites, farmland areas, all are contributing the ocean pollution, in the ocean pollution. Now come to the case studies. The first case study I am going to discuss here, that is Minamata disease. Actually, Minamata is a coastal town in Japan. This case study is recognized in 1950 because in 1950 there is a release of mercury component from shisho chemical plant. The effluent of that particular chemical plant interacted with the water bodies, and this particular methyl mercury due to biomagnification goes to the fishes, and from fishes to cats, or from fishes to humans, and then it was recognized the abnormal behavior of humans, because due to the contamination of methyl mercury, that methyl mercury affected the central nervous system of humans. So that's why this case study is taught in this particular curricula, because it is related to the water pollution. The next is itai-itai disease. That means this itai-itai disease is related to the cadmium poisoning. So the cadmium poisoning of Toyama Prefecture, Japan, starting around 1912. The term itai-itai disease was coined by locals for the severe pains people with a condition felt in the spine and joints, as you can see in this particular image. The cadmium poisoning can also cause softening of the bones and kidney failures. The next case study is blue baby syndrome. Blue baby syndrome, that means there is a term methemoglobinemia. That means this condition stems from nitrate poisoning in the blood. The baby takes on a bluish color because of the poorly oxygenated blood, and this poorly oxygenated blood is due to the nitrate contamination. This particular nitrite, which is the effluent of the industry or any source, get involved in the biomagnification process and go to the mother, and from mother to the baby, but baby is due to the interaction of this nitrite with the baby's blood, there is a reflection of blue color on the skin of the baby, and there is a early death of babies was recognized. That's why it is known as blue baby syndrome. Now, the last topic of this module is wastewater treatment. So that means how we can treat the wastewater. There are, in this particular image, you can recognize the primary and secondary portion of the wastewater treatment. But in some sources you can see there are 3 steps: primary, secondary and tertiary. But all in the whole, there is a purification of wastewater by different physical methods, different chemical methods and by different biological methods. That's why some people categorized in the 2 forms, primary and secondary, or primary, secondary and tertiary. The first is primary treatment. That means treatment method in which the application of physical forces predominant are known as physical unit operations. These were the first method to be used to treat the wastewater. In this particular portion or section, you can see the wastewater gets screened, the mixing, the flocculation, the sedimentation, the flotation, the filtration are typical unit operations by which we can treat and we can remove these solid impurities from the wastewater. In the next section, there is the secondary treatment or chemical treatment. In this particular section, we take the primary primary treatment treated water, and we interact this water with different disinfection chemicals, you can say. So the treatment method in which the removal or conversion of contaminants is brought about by the addition of chemicals or by other chemical reactions are known as chemical unit processes. In this particular method, the processes, the precipitation, the gas transfer method, adsorption, disinfection, for example by chlorine, are the most common examples used in secondary wastewater treatment. In tertiary treatment, or the another name is biological treatment. After secondary treatment of wastewater, in this process in which the biological growth products like microorganisms are kept in suspension in a liquid medium consisting of entrapped and suspended colloidal and dissolved organic and inorganic materials. There are 2 types of lagoons, anaerobic lagoon and aerobic lagoon. Aerobic means in the presence of oxygen, anaerobic means in the absence of oxygen. So we used to treat both by both methods. The first is aerobic lagoons. In aerobic, photosynthesis and the oxygen produced by the algae through the process of photosynthesis is used by the bacteria in the biochemical oxidation and degradation of organic waste. Carbon dioxide, ammonia, phosphate and other nutrients released in the biochemical oxidation reactions are in turn used by the algae, forming a cyclic symbiotic relationship. So there are 2 methods are here. First is water treatment and the another one is the growth of algae. The another is anaerobic lagoon. The earthen ponds built with a small surface area, a deep liquid depth of 3 to 7 meters. They are anaerobic throughout their depth except for an extremely shallow surface zone. Raw wastewater enters near the bottom of the lagoon and mixes with the active microbial mass in this sludge blanket. So like this we can treat water by aerobic way and the anaerobic way both. So in this context there are 3 sections. First is primary treatment in which they used to remove all the solid impurities. The next is chemical treatment or secondary treatment in which we use the chemicals to remove the dissolved impurities, and the third treatment in which we do the biological treatment by aerobic and anaerobic lagoons. Thank you. So in this particular portion we have discussed the water pollution. What are the causes of water pollution, the pollutants, the point source, non-point source. We emphasized on eutrophication. We also discussed 3 case studies: blue baby syndrome, itai-itai disease, minamata disease, and in the end we have discussed the wastewater treatment. Thank you.